Good afternoon, Collierville, and welcome. My name is Thatcher Gross, and we are delighted to have you join us for what I know will be a fascinating discussion. Today we have a privilege with speaking with Bryan Cottingham, an Emmy Award-winning television producer and a writer. This is Book Talk, and we're continuing our mission to bring insightful conversations and impactful perspectives to our community. Mr. Cottingham, accomplished and experienced, has quite a story and brings a wealth of knowledge and inspiration to many. Today we are honored and welcome Mr. Cottingham, an award-winning producer, director, and writer. He is an Emmy Award-winning regional and network producer, directed and a respected college professor, and an accomplished public speaker. With experience as a television and radio host, he has developed a reputation as an effective communicator with creative and management skills across corporate, educational, and nonprofit settings. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mr. Cottingham.
Good to be here. Thank you for asking me.
Of course. So for our first question, so you've worked across television, radio, and academia. So what initially drew you into communications and media production? And just tell us about your background.
Okay, I was 12 years old, living in Winona, Mississippi, a little town, and they opened a radio station. I had never been on radio before. I'd been in seeing live productions, but I went to the opening. Now this is a little 1,000-watt station. But I went to the opening, and I had a chance to see what happened there, and I fell in love with it. I went home and I told my parents, this is what I'm going to do. So I started hanging around the station all the time and learning about everything, and I would get drinks for the announcers, I would file records, I'd sweep up, anything to be around radio. And when I was 15, the manager offered me a job as a disc jockey, which was heaven. So I did that and loved it. When I graduated, I went to University of Memphis, or Memphis State then, for the first year of their radio TV major. It was one of the first in the country. So there were 16 of us who had a lot of experience and really were able to do radio and television. And I got into television, worked at Channel 5 here for 12 years, worked at an ad agency, and then I went out on my own as an independent producer. And by doing that, I've had a chance to do everything. I created, produced, directed, and wrote a network television series. I did a lot of network sports that I was an advisor for a couple of governors. Just a whole variety of things, wrote a lot of things. And this book is about experiences, but also what happens behind the scenes. Small town radio in the 50s and 60s, which is very different from now. Mm-hmm. And with that, I was able, I think, to convey a story, one of my love for the medium, but the changes and what it was really like.
Excellent, thank you. And what was the most challenging transition that you've made between teaching, producing, and writing?
I'm not sure there was much transition. When I was producing, especially when I worked with younger crews, I was teaching at that point. I always love to break things down into pieces and teach the fundamentals, teach somebody how to do that, and then how to get better. So honestly, there wasn't a transition because I went from real world to teaching. So I could take the real world and do that. I'm 79 years old. I still love working with young people. Mm-hmm. So that's where the challenge is, and that's where the fun is.
I love it. You've produced over 250 nationally distributed educational television programs. Which project stands out to you the most and why?
Well, the 250 stands out because we did 250 shows in 9 months. They were distributed everywhere. Some were live, some were not. And the crew I had were all just fresh out of college. So I got to train them. They already had background, like you're getting now. But they had background, but I trained them in the real world and got their feedback. And the challenge of doing that many, we came in 6 weeks under schedule and well under budget, and had a bunch of quality shows.
So what do you find most rewarding about teaching communications at the college level?
The feedback, seeing then the feedback is not all verbal. Sometimes just seeing a student's eyes light up, like you just opened a door. That's fun. It's like, yeah, I have 26 grandkids and great-grandkids. It's like watching someone for the first time discover something and also the feedback from them. I'll tell them at the beginning, argue with me. You don't have to, I don't want you to listen to everything and believe everything anybody tells you. Question it. You may be right, you may be wrong, but question it. That's the biggest kick.
That's good. That's good. Can you share a behind-the-scenes story from one of your television or radio productions that taught you like an unexpected lesson?
Yeah, it was a failure. I produced a mini telethon at Channel 5 many years ago. It was called The Bong Show. There was a show on network show called The Gong Show, silly things. We were raising money for the Arthritis Foundation. They wanted to raise $10,000 in the first show, 3 hours. We raised $22,000. So it was a resounding success, best show I'd ever done at the moment. And I was good. So we repeated it the next year. In fact, it went 17 years. I was young. So the second year, first year I was scared to death. Second year, I was cocky. I know what I'm doing. So I didn't prep it as well. I didn't realize, but I didn't prep it as well. We got on the air. First thing I noticed, we were remote on the second one, that I noticed that I had not gotten the phone number to put up. If you're going to raise money, you have to give people a place to call. And then other things were not working well. It just, all kinds of problems on it. The show was okay, but it wasn't that good. And I went to my boss the next day, and I said, Bill, I screwed up. And I was humbled by it. And he told me, and we went over it. I know you do postmortems. And I realized all the things I'd done, but number one was being too cocky, thinking I knew everything. Because the first time you do a show like that, you're scared to death, so you're checking and checking and rechecking. This one, I know how to do that. And I didn't, or I had not done it. So, and Phil told me the most important thing, and I would tell every student here, is if you don't screw up sometimes, you're not stretching yourself, you're not learning. Just don't do this mistake again. And I carry that, and I teach that in my classes.
I love that. Could you tell us about your book that you just wrote?
The book is called World versus Bob Chisholm, Surviving Small Town Radio. Bob Chisholm was the manager of the radio station where I started, my mentor, became a dear friend. He died several years ago. But Bob is the one who showed me the love of radio at that time. And the biggest thing though with Bob was his journalistic integrity. The name of the book comes from a frivolous lawsuit that was filed by a group called World Music. They were small music publishing company, and they sued all kinds of small radio stations trying to get money from them for that. And Bob was not always loved in the town, especially by the city council people. But he got the lawsuit and he showed it to me and everybody, and I was laughing because it said World versus Bob Chisholm. He said, I told you they were after me. So Bob was a man who stood up and would do good investigative journalism. Not this thing, I got to find somebody, I got to really expose somebody. It was with the city, any small town, I won't say corruption, but there was a lot of favoritism and things that the Board of Aldermen didn't want people to know, or the mayor didn't want. And a particular thing, he would go and report it, did his weekly or his monthly report from City Hall, from the meeting. And the alderman didn't like it because he told people things that they wanted kept secret. So one morning, in fact, the opening of the book is a quote. It says, if you say one more bad thing on the radio about the Board of Aldermen, the police, or the mayor, we're going to beat you to within an inch of your life. It was 4 o'clock in the morning. It was the chief of police and all 5 policemen meeting him, as he always got in at 4 in the morning. And so Bob went upstairs immediately and wrote the story. I was 17, I happened to go to the station that morning early because I love to hang around and do it. And Bob The short version, it's the first chapter of the book. The short version is Bob told me what happened. We recorded his newscast because he usually did it live because we weren't sure what would happen. We actually recorded and aired it sitting under the control board because there was a glass door you could see right into the control room. We didn't know what the police were going to do. Other short version, a few weeks later, they beat the crud out of him. And that kind of thing. And people were challenging him. The funny thing, one businessman, remember this is early 1960s, one local businessman made it known around, he said, I will spend up to $25,000 to get rid of Bob Chisholm. Bob heard about it. He called the businessman, he said, heck, I'll leave for $10,000. He wouldn't, but he wanted to confront. Right. So it's about his integrity. It's behind the scenes radio, what went on, a lot of funny things about it. There's discussion of the period, when I graduated from high school, it was totally segregated in 1964. The schools integrated after that. So it takes through the civil rights era in the South, what went on behind the scenes. Bob was a big part of it in doing it. So there is that, and then I have a co-writer, Candy Justice, who is Bob's daughter, who's a journalist now. And we talk about that, and we talk about our careers, all the things we've gotten to do. It's been an intriguing 79 years. The things I made the first announcement in the world that Elvis was dead, and was up for 3 days directing funeral coverage that was seen all over the world. And got to do things like that in the middle of the Rodney King riots, the Martin Luther King riots, just things like that. So it's fun to share that.
It's incredible. That is really fascinating. Wow. So what first drew you to Bob Chisholm's Chisholm's story? Was there like a hook moment, or like just something that convinced you for this memoir to be like,
yeah,
just, like, kind of be added?
Well, the thing that convinced me about Bob, and there's a small chapter on it. Just basically, I was still in high school, was walking through the offices. They're small, and Bob was sitting in front of a manual typewriter, big type, and he was just thinking. And he didn't see me. And all of a sudden, the way I described it there, I said his fingers exploded. He typed with 2 fingers, and he was doing like this. And he wrote it, and he stopped, and he sat back and looked kind of satisfied. And I realized, because I already knew how he wrote, and I realized he is now what I want to be. So that moment defined wanting to do that, and I never looked back. Transitioned to television, which I love. Radio was always kind of, first love. My career was television.
Were there any like early versions or directions for the book that you wrote that like changed significantly just as your research progressed?
Some. Candy and I wrote separately. We talked back and forth. We wrote different chapters, and then we would read and comment back and forth. And I honestly don't remember what they were, but there were a couple of chapters I realized I'm getting away from the story. The important thing, and I teach a writing process, and I followed it. But in the organizational stage, and I started writing, I realized that what I thought I wanted to do didn't fit like I thought it would. So we changed the direction. That's an important thing, even doing a television show or whatever, is have a plan, work it out, but be ready to change it, to make it better. And that's what happened. And Candy and I never had any arguments, which was nice, because this was, in one way, a memoir about Bob, but it's more about the town and growing up and the memories of doing that. I think people will like the book from several standpoints. One, it talks about integrity. There's a lot of humor in it. And you can look, whether you lived in a small town or not, you see what it was like. The best review I saw of it was somebody said, when reading the book, it was like, I'm nostalgic for a town I never lived in, and I'm proud of a man I never knew. That, to me, says that's what the book is.
It's beautiful. So what was your research process like with archival work would be like interviews, newspapers, personal letters. Were there any like surprising discoveries that you came upon?
Not real. Candy had more surprises. She's about 5 years younger than I am. She saw a lot of it from the family perspective. Some of the things that happened she didn't know about. There were a couple in the research. I found out one talking with a good friend who was an announcer there, older, in researching that somebody, when Maurice, my friend, was on the air, or Bob was doing a live newscast, this old farmer walked in, had a gun in his hand. And Maurice looked around and he says, I'm here to kill Bob Chisholm. Well, Maurice got him kind of settled down and talked. And he said, I don't like what he's saying. So they went off the air. Maurice introduced Bob. The guy had the gun stuck in his belt by then. But he told him, I'm here to kill you. I just don't like what you're doing. Bob said, let me buy you a cup of coffee. Took him to the city cafe. They had coffee. The guy just wanted to talk. And so I'd never heard that. Candy had never heard that. So that was a big thing. I didn't do a lot of research because I lived all of it. But I did a brainstorming. I filled 4 full notebooks of notes and ideas. Then I organized those. And then wrote separate chapters and then put the chapters together. So my research was done at that time over a period of 60 years. And remembering things. And asked my wife, telling a lot of stories.
Right. So did you face any significant roadblocks with this process, or through your just contradictory testimony, or any reluctant interviewees? How did you learn to navigate that?
The experience. First of all, you look at why is somebody reluctant. It's not just, well, I have to make you not reluctant. It's why. What's your problem? Are you afraid of being embarrassed? You just don't remember. You're afraid of whatever. Solve those problems, and most people will open up. I've done hundreds and hundreds of interviews on camera, whatever. And the first thing you have to do is understand the person and what is their agenda, what is their psychology. Then you can get to the interview. The other thing is to listen. Listen, figure out, I know what I want to talk about as the interviewer, but I need to listen to what do you want to talk about. And I have to bring the two together. Sometimes I have to talk with you about things I don't care about. But I know until you get those out, you're not going to give me what I want. So that was a part. It was not so much learning it, because by the time then I was already retired from 50 plus years of doing this. Right. But it was putting it into practice and learning. So a big thing I will always tell people, listen. And you can do that.
Amazing. So the book highlights moments when Chisholm was threatened or attacked, reporting truth in a hostile environment. How did he balance courage with self-preservation? He worried about it, I know. But on the front, basically he stood up to it. He's dealing with bullies. Now, other than he was beaten up, the police hired a former announcer who Bob had fired for not having integrity, hired him to beat Bob up. And he came back from it. The rest of it, he didn't make much money. Candy talks about that Bob apologized to her. She was an only child. Apologized for not being able to provide so much. And she said, Daddy, just watching you work and watching you stand up. So it was just integrity. He was not going to sell out. And he had some death threats. A group tried to get the station shut down. And when they did that, Candy writes beautifully about it. The whole town stood up and backed him. He was hated by some people, but for everybody who hated him, 10 people loved him and loved his integrity. It's beautiful. So, did you find any evidence that Chisholm's actions had long-term effects on the community's relationship to journalism, race relations, or just civic trust?
Absolutely. The race relations. This is, again, early 60s, late 50s, early 60s. It was 1962 when I started there. And race relations were bad. And we talk about some of that. I love the town. It's magic. But there were these problems that we didn't know existed because we were in the majority. But they were there. Bob, as radio stations then were there, we were very segregated. Of course, no black announcers. We didn't do any black news. cover anything. Covered football, but not the black school. So Bob gradually, the first thing he did, he brought in a 5-minute show once a week, little thing. It was called the Negro Activity Calendar. Negro was the polite word then for African Americans. And blacks did it and did the show, and it started getting things in. Then we only played white music, white artists, except for Nat King Cole, who you wouldn't have heard of, but he was kind of smooth, and he was okay. He was safe. Well, Bob started, even though we were part of a 5-station network, Bob started easing black music in, not making a big deal of it. So he understood you can't just slam and do something. You have to work behind the scenes and get people used to things. He worked with the school superintendent during the integration of all of that. So, and as far as journalism, he and Hembry Brandon, the editor of the weekly newspaper, the Winona Times, were close friends, and they worked together. They weren't rivals. They did things together, and people saw that. When the Board of Aldermen and the Board of Supervisors, both of whom could get corrupt if they were not unchecked, decided we're going to meet on the same night, so Chisholm and Brandon can't cover us. One of them can't cover us. Well, immediately Bob and Hembry got together, and they said, okay, Bob said, this month I'll cover the aldermen, you cover the supervisors. We'll compare our notes and write. So people saw that happen. People saw we're going to do what's right. And Bob did. And he stood up, and that helped mold the face of journalism in a little town. Mm-hmm. And these guys were good. I mean, yeah, we reported little things. I mean, we reported funerals and just little things, which make people think, but these weren't real journalists. But we reported what people wanted to know and what people needed to know. And the newspaper did the same thing. That's what made them. They were both good writers, and they both had integrity.
That's good. What do you hope contemporary readers take away from World versus Bob Chisholm in terms of like press freedom, local journalism, or civic responsibility?
I hope they look at what's going on today and try to do something about it. I'll get on my soapbox for just a moment. Journalistic integrity is almost non-existent. It's all about ratings. They're important, but all about that. Politically, I helped run 2 governors' campaigns and was advisor for them. These were good people. Politically now, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, which I think are 2 of the most obscene words in the English language, and liberal and conservative. They're obscene. They should be dropped. Because everything is based on who's in power. What can I do? That's going on right now. I hope this makes people look back at a time when it mattered. When a man was willing to get beaten, a man was willing to sacrifice money for himself, always took care of his family, but was willing to do that and become a model for people. If more people will start doing that, if they start making gradual changes and instead of trying to make a huge change here and a huge change there, this book will be a success. The other part, if they look at it like this man and said it makes me nostalgic for a place I never lived, is look, okay, it was beautiful then. It was idyllic. There were problems. I'm not saying I love the technology today. I had students ask me one time. We were talking about age. And they said, would you like to be our age again? I said, no. But when I was your age, I loved it. And when I was 10 years older, I loved it. And when I was about 30s, 40s, 50s, I'm going to be 80 next year. This is my favorite time of my life. And when I was in my 70s, that was my favorite time. Bob was like that. He didn't look and say, well, I wish I did this, I wish I did this. I look at things and say, ooh, that was not good. But I learned something from it. So yeah, where I am today is the best. I want people to understand that and get that lesson. And it's a lesson I got from Bob.
That's great. So how much of a book is a local story, and how do you see it as a part of a national story of journalism and civil rights?
It's totally local, but the story happened. This same story happened around the South. It happened in the North. It happened in places, in little towns, and little towns are the microcosm and the building of the country. So the things that happened politically, that happened racially, they were just more pronounced or more open in the South. Much more open. I talk about, you wouldn't know the name probably, but the names. A civil rights leader named Medgar Evers was murdered in Jackson, Mississippi, where he lived. A man named Byron De La Beckwith was taken to trial for it. He was hung jury twice because it's all white jury. And years and years later, he was convicted finally and went to prison, died in prison. Well, he was doing basically a victory tour after he finished the second trial. So people brought him to Winona. They brought him to the radio station, wanted to get him interviewed. Bob wouldn't interview him. He said, I'm not going to promote this. It's wrong. But I was standing in there. I was maybe 16 in there when Bob, right before Bob came in, and some people, a couple of the businessmen kind of punched him like, said, did you really do it? And I will never forget it. I won't say the word. But he said, N-word's dead, 80. I get chills right now. That is what happened. That is a behind-the-scenes thing. No, Candy didn't know about that. I remember this. That happened over 60 years ago. I still remember it. Those things happened around the country. And for someone somewhere else in the country, or Memphis, who didn't grow up, Collierville, it's a thing of, wait a minute, I remember this type of thing happening. Maybe not the specific story. That's what they can take away. That is the national implication. And as far as, here's a man who stood up. Not only that, he taught me, he taught Candy, he taught people around him the value of integrity.
Thank you. What next projects are you considering, like more memoir or deep dives into local history, or perhaps like a sequel of this of sorts?
I'm writing a book right now. It's an autobiography. Right. It's been, like I said, an interesting 79 years. Got to do a lot. When I was 14 years old, I met the original 7 Mercury astronauts a couple of weeks after Alan Shepard was the first American in space. 2 weeks later, I opened the door to the House of Representatives. I was 14 years old. To the House of Representatives, so John Kennedy could walk into the House floor and say, we're going to put a man on the moon by the end of the decade. I was there. Living on my own in Washington when I was 14 years old. I was a page in Congress. So we have that. A lot of the things I've got to do. The title of the book is, geez, you try to start one lousy riot. So figure that one out.
Yeah.
I hope it makes you want to read it. The short version is, now I was a nerd in high school. I was a skinny, thick glasses, short haircut. I had a lot of good friends, fortunately. And I got expelled my senior year for attempting to start a riot and take over the school. Slight misunderstanding. Got the superintendent fired. I got reinstated. He literally manhandled me. He hit me. We would own the school district. Yeah, he actually hit me several times. Not slug. Hit me from behind, knocked me. He weighed 225 pounds. I was 135 pounds then. So yeah, so that's what you try to start one lousy riot. And it goes there. Through the things growing up in a little town, it talks about how I got into this business. The people I've met a lot of celebrities, worked with a lot, some became good friends, wild experiences. It's a fun book for me. I hope it'll be out next year.
I hope. Where can readers find your book, or books, I should say?
Amazon.com. Go to Amazon.com. You can order it in paperback, hardback, or Kindle e-reader. Right. And I think an audio book is going to come out soon with it. But if you go to Amazon, and I'm proud of this, Candy is too, there are 23 reviews so far on the book. 22 of them are 5-star. The other one's 4-star. Frankly, I think one of my ex-wives read the book and did a 4-star. But that's in the book too. It's just, yeah, like there's a chapter in the book, to go back for a second, It's called Walking Through the Woods on a Rainy Night with a Convicted Murderer Looking for a Can Opener. It's part of life with my wife, who's a fascinating lady. This is what I want people to, but you can get it there, you can order it, and please do.
Yes, sir. And thank you so much, Mr. Cunningham, for just sharing your story with us. And it's truly inspiring to see your dedication and passion that you bring with you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. And I love this program. I love to see young people excited about television. Go for it.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone who joined us. We're reminded once again of the vital role people can play in other lives. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Book Talk. Be sure to check out Collierville Dragon Media's website for social media. We'll see you next time, Collierville.
Book Talk is a monthly show produced by Collierville High School Dragon Media student journalists. To find more information on previous Book Talk guests or novels, visit colliervilledragonmedia.com.